All right, everybody, we're back. You know the routine. We're in the middle of a heat wave here in Ventura, so I'm going to try to roll through this without having heat exhaustion. Some of you guys are complaining about the volume. Others say it's perfect. So I have a built-in microphone in my recording system. So what I'll do is I'll make some exploration and try to get an outside mic and see if that helps, because I don't know what to tell you. Everybody has a different opinion on what's going on. So I got my sidekick off camera. My lovely wife's going to read this week's questions. You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the first one is from Austin, and he says, a good doorman prevents fights rather than start them. Remember, Andy's Barbecue Heaven on Santa Clara?
Okay, that was a real long, well, not real long, but it was pretty long and involved. And I know what he's talking about.
What was
Andy's
long and involved?
the message originally was long and involved, so I shortened
okay.
it like I do a lot of these. Andy's Barbecue Heaven turned into the Big Greenhouse, and then I don't even know what it is now. The Andy's Barbecue Heaven had good barbecue food there, a lot of fun. It was kind of a party joint, and we would go in there, and we were just establishing ourselves in Ventura. And, we had a couple of run-ins with the bouncers in there. And I think I remember the incident, and this guy was pretty cool. And, he had the same philosophy I had. Bouncers aren't there to beat people up. They're there to neutralize things and talk through problems and whatnot. But that was a place we had a lot of fun. It was on Santa Clara Street, Santa Clara and Palm, I think, just about. And it went from Andy's Barbecue Heaven to the Big Greenhouse, and their slogan was chicken, steak, and chocolate cake, all you could eat.
Oh, God.
And we would go in there, and it had little rooms. You could break off into the little rooms. And I know I got up one night. They were having an anniversary party for me, and I got up, and David and Tom stuck a bunch of LSD in my drink while I was in the bathroom. I came back and I ate my meal and went home, and I was in a dead sleep. 2:00 in the morning, I woke completely up, man, hallucinating. I was just totally whacked. Jumped back on my bike, went back down to the party at the clubhouse. But Andy Barbecue Heaven, I remember it. Okay, next one.
Okay, Dennis and Kaz, you don't seem bitter to your old club. That's good.
Well, I try not to be bitter to anybody, and even, my enemies, I try not to be bitter towards them. I just don't think it's productive. I think it's kind of like a cancer, and you know what cancer does? It eats away at you till you die. So I got no time to be bitter. I have some people that I will never want to associate with, but I don't let them take up free rent in my head.
Good.
Okay.
TC Moo, Bandit has a place in biker history. That's for sure.
Yeah, he does. And, it's funny, Bandit and I go back to the early 70s, and he wrote me last week, and he got me, man. He goes, why are you talking shit about me? I wrote him back, I go, what the fuck are you talking about? And he goes, I know that latest video you did. And he had me on a roll for a minute, and then he said, I'm fucking with you. And he got me.
Good.
I thought that you like that, huh?
Yeah.
So I challenged him. I said I demanded satisfaction, so we're going to set up some sort of duel. I'm not quite sure what.
Okay.
Pistols or knives.
Like you and Robert talking in terms of The Godfather?
Yes, exactly.
God.
That's a whole different story. I had an attorney that him and I talk in Godfather terms all the time, and he texts me one-liners. And when I was in prison in Texas, he sent me a letter, and he failed intentionally to put on that it was attorney-client privilege. So the first thing the cops did is they opened it up and started rummaging through it. And he had lines from The Godfather in it when he was before the Senate, and he was being questioned, and the intelligence guys called me, and they wanted to know what the hell we were talking about. Anyways, I got off track, but one of my favorite lawyers, Robert Sheehan.
No Man's Land writes, out bad is pretty petty. It once was called Bad Standing.
Yeah, out bad initially was called bad standing. You could leave the club in good standing or bad standing,
I get it.
and wasn't that big a deal if you left the club. I mean, you didn't associate with them anymore, and then slowly it evolved into this shaming situation, and it goes back to when you know I got in a big argument with Flash in the West Coast officers meeting because I was still Facebook friends with Pee Wee, and he felt that I needed to defriend him. And in the meeting, I brought it up. I stood up and I go, we're supposed to be the toughest fucking motorcycle club, baddest motherfuckers in the world, and we're arguing about defriending somebody on Facebook. I go, what the fuck has this all come to? But anyways, I could probably do a whole episode on that. Anyways, next question.
Okay, Andrew Nichols writes, and you're going to have to forgive me on this pronunciation. Versailles was the Gallic warrior Caesar defended.
Veretti, let me see it. It's Veretickson. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but that's the Gallic lawyer I was talking to, general I was talking about. Caesar conquered him, brought him back to Rome, and I think he did a public execution. He choked him to death. That was, he brought him back in chains, and Veterex, that General Veterex, I think that was it. And he was a barbarian type guy, and Caesar outsmarted him, and Caesar had two fronts going. He had him in the castle, and then he had the reinforcements coming up behind him, and he was fighting on. He was in the same location fighting on two fronts, but he ultimately won. That's why Caesar's one of my favorite generals. Anyways.
Okay. Patrick O'Connie writes, LSD trips.
Well, I think initially he asked me if I ever had clarity on my LSD trips. And my LSD trips are usually very confusing and cluttered as I came on to the LSD. And then I had pure clarity. And I know Jesse and I one time Bill Reed was still a Saint and Slave, and Bill Reed, and we had David Ortega, Jesse, a couple other Ventura guys, and Bill Reed was the only Saint and Slave I remember, but there were other slaves with him. We all came down. We got to a cut in the road where we would drive back to Ventura on 101, and they would cut through the mountains and come out the back way on 5 to San Fernando Valley because they didn't want to deal. The Santa Barbara cops just were terrible. Nobody wanted to deal with them. And I remember we took the drops. We parted ways. We got to the next gas stop, and man, I'd never been that high in my life. And Jesse came up to me and said, "How high are you, man?" And I go, "Oh, man," I said, "I'm in orbit almost." And we said, "Let's go talk to David and see how he's doing." So we started to walk over to talk to David. David looked normal. So we turned around and left. We go, "Now let's don't talk to David." But there was an attachment or another question in conjunction with this. They wanted to know if I'd ever had any blackouts. And I was on my motorcycle. I went through the tunnels. And anybody that's from California knows that you reach the tunnels on the 101 highway. You go through the tunnels and it takes you out to Goleta area, right on the ocean. And I cannot remember going into the tunnels, and I don't remember anything till we got to the stoplights in Santa Barbara. That's a long ways, and I must have been doing all right. Here I sit.
Knows, huh? Yeah. There was an LSD thing you told me about, and I can't remember, but it involved toilet paper.
Oh, that's a great
that would
toilet
be
paper
one.
story. Yeah, I'll tell that story maybe in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it
that's a little
involved the
out
Grateful
there.
Dead and Cody, Wyoming, and then a giant party at the clubhouse. But anyways, next question.
Okay. Eric writes, no liner mention in Shakedown Street.
Okay, I saw that. Lowell George put the liner notes in there because he got a hold of Fu Griffin, Fu from Oakland, and he got a hold of me and said, I want to put liner notes in here to make reference to you guys. I don't know if Garcia said anything, but if you get one of the original albums, you're going to see the liner notes. I'm not just talking shit to talk shit. Also, I'll give you an example. The first Cheap Thrills album by Big Brother and the holding company had the Hells Angels Frisco approved by on it in the lower right hand corner, and then later the club wanted it taken out. It was taken out, and then later the club wanted it put back in. And I'm gonna show you this. There it is, right there. This is this is an original here, and then on the backs, Janis Joplin, who had relationships with Sweet William and Freewheelin' Frank. But this is the album. So, the liner notes, I don't know. Maybe it was a new edition. Maybe they heard I was out bad and they took it out. No, I'm just fucking around now. Okay.
Okay, Hammer 2.2 writes, have you seen the series Rome? I haven't.
Well, I think you have seen the series with me. It's two seasons, probably 20, 25 episodes. And there's something unique about that is my friend, John Milius, the movie director, he was involved in that movie. He's got a great movie. One of his first movies that John Milius did was Warren Oates plays Dillinger. He plays the part of Dillinger. And it's really kind of a cool little movie. John Milius also coined the phrase, go ahead, make my day. He helped write Dirty Harry. He wrote Apocalypse Now. He was a good friend of the Hells Angels. He used to come up to the Ventura Clubhouse and hang out. You could catch him up in Oakland. And he originally was supposed to do the Hells Angel movie that Tony Scott wound up signing a contract for. And that's, I write about it in my new book. But I'm very familiar with Rome. I'm very familiar with all of John's work. Like I said, we were friends. But next question, I guess.
Crookside Wood writes, how hard is it to keep the pack together on the road?
Really hard. And, I used that argument in interviews before when we first started getting accusations of criminal organization activity. And I'd say, man, follow us going across country. You're going to see how hard it is to get 25 guys to gas up and go, let alone run a criminal empire. But anyways, it's tough. It's not easy. It takes a lot of skill. You have to be a diplomat because everybody gets out on the road and they start doing a lot of drugs.
Wasn't David in charge of a lot of that?
David was the road captain, and he ran a tight ship. Anybody's bike he would go and inspect your bike when you weren't even around. He'd come to the meeting and go, you got a frayed throttle cable, you got a frayed brake cable, your tread's too thin, your mufflers aren't mounted correctly. I mean, he just really lay into it.
Okay, Lily Monster writes, any rooster from Richmond stories?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to tell Rooster and I were very good friends. I really dug him, man. And Rooster and I had a little deal going, shipping some LSD down in some, and everybody's dead, so I'm going to tell the story. Everybody can handle the heat, including myself. I'm not worried about it. The statute of limitations are way beyond. But Rooster would send cocaine. He'd get some good cocaine or some good LSD, and he'd send it down to me on the train. His mother would bring it down, and I would pick her up at the train station. Rooster
Did she know she was carrying?
Yeah, I think she knew what the hell she was doing. She needed a little extra grocery money from Rooster. Oh. But that was one of our shenanigans we pulled back in the 70s.
Tony Vaugh writes, have you thought about writing?
Thought about what?
Writing Like a book or a paragraph or
Well,
a sentence.
I might do some writing, in my spare time. You know what? I try to keep up. I do stuff daily. If I don't do it and I start slacking off, Beverly rides my ass a little bit. But she also helps me edit, and I'm talking about my books. She also bounce stuff off of her for my books. So I got this new book coming out. Kind of rewritten the ending, and it's really hard, and I think it's going to turn some heads, maybe. Anyways, next question.
Fuller's London Pride writes, are you allowed Hells Angel memorabilia?
Okay, and I think I got a lot of people who wrote that question and wanted to know because they saw we got a new filming area. It changes all the time. We're moving stuff around. And they saw some Hells Angel stuff. Most of the Hells Angel stuff I see, like if you look over my shoulder, that's the Hells Angel Forever album. And that was offered to the public. You could buy the the VHS, and you could buy the music soundtrack. So these are stuff that was available to the public. I do have some things. I have a artillery shell that was confiscated by law enforcement. And after I left the club, some of my cases had, here, let me reach over and grab it. Some of my cases had settled. This is an artillery shell. You can see the Marine Corps emblem on the top. It was given to me by the Marines that were active at the time. And the police raided my house. They saw the shell. They knew I was a felon. They said I couldn't have the shell. They took it in. They tested it, and it had, explosive residue.
Yeah.
Because it's a goddamn shell, and they were trying to bust my balls for it. Mariah got it back for me. This was after I was out of the club, and I have had some stuff returned to me after my exit from the club that I kept because of the way I was treated. I felt I left in good standing, and then somebody had a personal grudge with me and shifted everything around. And all my club stuff that I had turned in when I left, when I got indicted, the police showed me a picture of they had raided the clubhouse, and the cop showed me a picture, and it was just in a rubble. And the people had broke stuff and like disrespected me. I don't know what the point was. The Filthy Few flag above my head was found in an abandoned storage locker. That and a lot of other stuff. And I'm not going to tell you who gave it to me, but the guy went to the locker. He's one of these guys that buys in the lockers, and then you open them and you find what gifts you get. And there was a bunch of Hells Angel stuff that belonged to me in there. He happened to know me, and he returned everything to me. And am I going to give it back? I don't see any reason to give it back. They lost control of it. Apparently, I didn't have any interest in it. Okay.
Okay, Greg Zivick writes, was Cleveland blood in?
Well, that's the rumor. Cleveland, very serious charter. And I've said this before, like Secrets of the Hells Angels, I participated in that. The best episode out of all of them, I think there was 8 of them, the best episode was number 2, and that had to do with Cleveland in the 70s. Yeah. And they were a bunch of tough characters.
They were scary.
They were, and Andy Shishon ultimately transferred to Ventura and then went back to Cleveland. I think he wanted to raise his daughters out of Cleveland. He had a couple of young daughters, and put them in private school out here, and he transferred to Ventura for about a decade.
Okay, Icebreaker writes, many Cleveland brothers in prison?
Well, Stephen Yee, I think, still there. He was the first one of the DNA cases in the United States. He left his blood at the scene of a murder, and they tied the murder to him by his blood being at the scene, and he's still incarcerated. Other people have come and gone. Stephen Yee's had a long haul in there. It's time for him to come home, man. He's been in there since the 80s, I believe. We're now 2025. He got a life sentence, I think.
Daniel Mazur Videos writes, Chuck Zito was questioned on the Vlad interview. He said negative comments on Pee Wee, but he didn't comment on Christy.
Yeah, Chuck and I had no problem, and I don't know what the issue is with other people in the club that Chuck has. It's not my problem. It's not my business. Like I said, Chuck and I are good. I just saw him.
Okay, Living on Cash writes, did you know Steve McQueen or Von Dutch?
I didn't know McQueen very good. I knew Dutch pretty well. I had first time I really met. I ran into Dutch, but the first time I really interacted with him, I was with the Slaves, and we were fighting these guys in a bar on Ventura Boulevard, and Dutch got some friendly fire. He got his cheeks split open, and the guy said if we ran these guys out of the bar, he'd give us free beer the rest of the night. And I was independent at the time. So we fought these guys. They left. Dutch got his cheek split open. Since it was free beer, there was no way he was leaving. And Bill Reed got a needle and thread and sewed him up with him sitting on the bar. But Dutch worked out for Danny Brooker in Movie Land Cars for the Stars. That's a job that Dick Woods had, leader of the Question March, before he got stabbed. So yeah, I knew both those guys. I knew Chad McQueen pretty good. Went to the house. He had a beautiful house, tributes to his father all over. He had a complete Indian motorcycle mounted on the wall. Very cool.
Okay, do you have many comments on Canada and the Outlaw Twins?
Well, the Outlaw Twins are the Outlaw Twins,
Yeah,
man. Someone's
yeah.
going to deal with them. I'm not going to get way off into it. Like, I try to keep everybody abreast on what I know. Sometimes I make mistakes. Had some guy get butt hurt because he said he was in the, club before Bernie was, Satan's Choice. And, I didn't admit him intentionally. I admitted him because it wasn't relative to what I was trying to project to the audience. And I don't intentionally insult anybody. If I intentionally insult anybody, you'll either get the message directly from me or you'll hear it from your mom. So I'm going to move on now. I want to talk about Beverly. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I want to talk about Lamonte. Monte. He was a Hells Henchman. He'd been in the club like 18 years before he was murdered. He was murdered in '94. And he was also, the time he was murdered, I believe he was the club leader. And, everybody knows that the Hells Angels and the Outlaws were at war, and I was instrumental in trying to create something along with Taco and Stairway Harry. But the talks broke down. And, there's several factors why. It was a long-standing feud. There were sporadic acts of violence. There's also speculation now that the government had an informant, and they actively tried to destabilize the peace talks. And we all know that. People in the outlaw culture know the cops, at least the informants for the cops, have instigated stuff over the years. And this is no disparaging remark to the cops. Cops are tough guys. They can take it if I say anything that hurts their feelings. In addition, the Outlaws had a guy named Kevin Spike O'Neill, and Spike was very aggressive, and he played a key role in the peace talks breaking down. And the Hells Angels and the Outlaws were actively working to try to, through Taco and myself, but Taco told me himself that Spike wasn't having it, he didn't like it, and created a lot of drama. Probably Spike's worst enemy was himself, because the FBI, or I don't know what law enforcement agency, I think the FBI, planted a bug in his house, and they had him in there talking about murders, bombings, things he was going to do, things he wasn't going to do. So a lot of the information came from Spike himself, and this helped, with the investigation, and ultimate Spike's now, I think, doing life in prison. The murder of Monte was real brutal, man. And there was a guy named Wolf that committed it. They killed Monte. Wolf, this guy Wolf, he was an outlaw, killed Monte in his bike shop. and he shot him 5 times, stabbed him 5 times, 6 times, and bludgeoned him to death. Now, you hear conflicting reports. It was very gruesome. It was very brutal. I was told the murder scene was just blood everywhere. It was a mess. Monte would not die. Now, the guy tried to get out the back door. Wolf, I was told he tried to get out the back door. Monte had a secret little latch you had to hit to get out of the back door. And Wolf couldn't find it. He kind of panicked. He came back through the main part of the shop, and I heard Monte wrapped his arms around him, and Wolf started kind of dragging him through the shop. Wolf started hitting him with the pistol. I was told that he broke the pistol grips and the end of the pistol. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. You get all these conflicting stories. One of the things that I didn't appreciate, Wolf said that Monte begged for his life, and it doesn't sound like somebody that got shot 5 times, stabbed 5 times, and bludgeoned to death was begging for his life. It sounded to me like he was fighting, and I suspect that Wolf kind of realized he bungled the job when he got back in the car, and that was one of the things. I read it in a police report. There was a lot of bravado going around by this guy Wolf that he begged for his life and he pissed me off. I killed him. The whole thing was senseless, and the whole fight was senseless. The talks broke down. We petitioned the Hells Henchmen to become. It was a very cavalier move. We petitioned the Henchmen to become Hells Angels, right in the outlaws' territory, and it cost Monte his life. Now, Monte was still a prospect when he was killed, and he was buried a Hell's Angel. That doesn't happen all the time, but Monte was buried a Hell's Angel. There's a lot of violence from 94 to 95. There was a guy named Roger. He was injured in an explosion. Another guy named Mike discovered a car bomb. Didn't go off. He discovered it. And then there was another explosion. It was reportedly the 3rd largest in U.S. history at the Hells Henchmen, or maybe the Hells Angels Perspective Clubhouse. And then there was a final act. A guy named 4x was fatally shot. And I was going to get way off into everything, and I decided against it because I talked to Mel Clancy last week, and Mel's a prominent member from that area. You can find him all over the internet. And Mel and I talked about him coming on the show. I don't know when it's going to happen. Mel is working on his own personal project right now, and when he said the project was ready to hit the streets, he'd come on the show. And like I said, nothing's set yet, but it's all relative to what's been going on and what I want to talk about. And that's as deep as I'm going to get in the situation with Monte. It was a terrible thing. I know we sent another member back for 4x's funeral, and the member wound up, I've talked about it before on here, the member wound up picking a beef up for explosives, wound up going to jail, and ultimately we got him out and got him a lawyer, and he got the hell out of Dodge. I think they were basically saying, get out of town and we'll forget if we ever met you. But that's it for this week. More to come. Let me know if you like the Q&A. Too short, too long. I know you wanted or were expecting a little bit more on the Hells Henchmen, but I want to save it for when Mel's with me. So that's it. Please like, follow, and comment. And I'll see you guys down the road. If you don't like the commercials, go to Patreon. Take care.